ability to use the data start and use the stables for the government sources.
Carbon is similar to this. Well, that's going to be for this examination.
So the architect is quite famous.
Okay, what is this? Why am I not?
Everything next to this.
Everything is touristy. So we pay more money than normally would if you can something that you want to shape. So trying to
Yeah, the offense.
there's a nice, it's a light brown and cash which will run so that's good. So further away
You chose now.
Yeah, but the last
oh, that's my goodness. Oh, really?
But I think people are just like, what is it after this?
Yeah, well,
Okay, so there is time. Start with
maybe can do that and up down that, but yeah. Let's start. Yeah. Wait for another one. How do you do it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was an undergrad.
Yeah.
Over 30 years ago, so it's been a walk down memory lane. On campus. Different.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, it's green.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly run to the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like music industry.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's, yeah, thanks. Brutal, probably.
Yeah. Oh, the second part. Yeah.
Yes. Right. This is actually the last paper session for NIME. So welcome to the last paper session for NIME 2025. We're going to have amazing other posters, keynote, and more concerts, installationing happening this afternoon. Yeah. So I'm co-chairing with Kunwoo today for the extended reality. Without further say, let's welcome the first presenter. Collaborative musical expressions through interactive VR sports by David Kim-Boyle.
Boyle.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a nice break. I'm from the University of Sydney. If any of you are in town for a little while, especially the international folks, and you were interested in a tour of the conservatorium and you happen to be here next week, let me know, reach out, and I'll be happy to show you around. We're really well situated, about a 5-minute walk from the Opera House, adjacent to the Botanic Gardens. So if you're in town and if you're curious about the building, let me know. I'm not actually going to talk about the paper that is in the proceedings too much. I thought paper's already in the proceedings. You can read that as you so wish. But what I'd rather do is talk about the work that's led up to the paper. So that's almost equally as important, I think, as where this fun little project is heading. So I think it's important for me to give you a little bit of context about this work. And it's all motivated, I would say, by quite a few factors, not least of which is my interest in graphic scores, such as this. This rather nice one is a piece by Roman Halbenstock-Ramadi called Liaisons from the late 1950s. You may or may not have seen it. You may or may not have even heard of Halbenstock-Ramadi. You've probably heard of John Cage, Fontana Mix from 1958, same year as Liaisons. So there's this flurry of works from the late 1950s, early 1960s, which really foreground this graphic element in the scores. And this has always kind of fascinated me for various reasons. Christian Wolff, for one, 2 or 3 people from the early 60s. So this has been a really strong driver of the work I do. And I think it's really important to bear in mind that all of this work, which I'm showing you here, or these 4 works, I should say, are not necessarily new in terms of the way that they're presenting musical information. Some of you may have seen work like this from the early 15th century, beautiful graphic scores. And this piece is With a Compass Was I Composed. It's really quite gorgeous. There's other ones in the shape of a heart, love songs. So really beautiful. So this kind of idea of graphic notation and ways of representing sound graphically is by no means new. So this has been kind of an influence for me in the work that I do, and particularly the work with graphic scores, such as this piece from 2013. So it's a little bit old now. 2013, we didn't have, I'm just looking at my bag of seeing if I can grab the VR headset from within it, but I won't run and get it. We didn't have VR headsets, so we couldn't really simulate the idea of depth and immersion very well. So this had to be kind of faked like this. And so this piece, this is the score for a piece, which is generated live in jitter. And you can see it moves around. The reason why it moves around is so that people can actually see depth a little more easily. So in 2013, headsets weren't around. It was really difficult to simulate the idea of depth, but this kind of started to change in the late 2010s, particularly with devices such as the Microsoft HoloLens. And I hesitate to say that this is the only piece for 3 wind instruments and 3 Microsoft HoloLenses in existence, but here it is. So this is a piece from 2019 that I worked on with the Elysian Ensemble, quite a well-known contemporary music ensemble. The 3 performers here are seeing a score projected in the space here that they're walking through, which is, I'll just play it again, which is the Ian Potter Centre at Monash University. So they're seeing a 3-dimensional immersive score, which is actually filling up the space. So I guess the space is probably about twice the size of this auditorium. So you can imagine a score that fills up this entire auditorium that you have to actually walk through to to interpret. The score moves as they are interpreting it, and it's responsive to the sounds that they're making. So there's a max patch that's analyzing the sounds and doing spectral analysis and transforming the score as a result of that. This is some development work that was captured in my studio. So I've got a headset on. This is a real-time screen capture. So you're seeing what the score looks like there. So this is all of the work that's led up to some of the work in the paper, and especially the VR adaptations of classic graphic open form works that I talk about a little bit more at length in the paper. So some of the questions that I'm asking are, how might we adapt some of these works for VR? How might the scores themselves become instruments that we can interact with? And more interestingly, this question that's developed is, how might we be able to aestheticize collaboration, the way that people come together to interact with a piece? How might that interaction itself become something that can become the locus of aesthetic value? So these are some of the questions that I'm asking. And this really classic graphic score on the left is December 1952 by Earl Brown. So I thought, okay, let's use this as a starting point and let's try and make a VR adaptation of this. And I'm not going to read this entire quote, but Earl Brown actually talks about this idea, not of VR in 1952, but he's talking about this idea of having a score that's like a Calder mobile that consists of elements that actually move around, that have depth as well as X and Y presence. So he talks about a three-dimensional box in which there would be motorized elements, horizontal and vertical, as the elements in December are on the paper. So he was thinking about this at the time, and so I found that really interesting. So I thought, okay, well, let's see how we might be able to visualize this score in 3D space. And instead of looking at the original distribution of the objects, let's play around with it and see if we can distribute them in various different ways. So maybe we can distribute these elements horizontally and vertically or randomly, and maybe we can give them different physical behaviors in the space so they can be subject to inertia and friction and different gravitational forces. So this is an idea of what the piece looks like in VR space. This is a screen capture. So you can see that I'm just using a controller to tap various different distributions. So this is a horizontal distribution of the objects, and they all fell to the ground because they're all subject to gravity. And they're all moving around slightly because when they collide with each other, they bounce and they move. What did I do next? What was that? I think that might be the original distribution. Okay, so playing around with this idea of how we might be able to redistribute these objects in space, and there are some of them moving. And then the next idea is like, well, okay, let's not keep them static. Let's think about how we might be able to move them by grabbing them and pulling them around. So you can see on these two hands here, I'm not sure how many people have done VR development, but these green rays that you see are kind of like, how can I say, they're like tools that let you grab an object at a distance. So if I wanted to pick up my phone, it's easy because it's right here and I can pick it up like this. But if I wanted to pick up my bag, I can't really do that from here. I'd need some kind of tool. So we use raycasts to interact with these distant objects. So in this piece, we can interact with these objects by grabbing them, or by actually walking through the score and grabbing them, or by using this raycast idea to grab something from a distance, and we can redistribute the objects. And each of these objects is correlated in this adaptation to musical sounds. So the volume correlates to pitch, and if I bang two objects together, I'll trigger a pitch. If they hit the surface, I'll trigger a pitch. So the score becomes kind of an instrument, a musical instrument that I can play around with. Here's a little example of that interaction here. And this is a screen capture from an Oculus Quest 3 headset. So there I go, just grabbing these objects, moving them around, redistributing them, as you can see there. So the interesting thing that followed then was that, okay, how can I make this actually visible to a pianist now? So not only how can I make it visible to a pianist, but how can I get other people to collaborate on this? So it's not just me in my own private little VR universe doing this, but how can I invite other people in to do this? So that's when the next step of this project came along, which was the idea of being able to network things. So what this enables me to do is to have a musician who can see the score that is being transformed by clients all around the world. And this is kind of the basic little network structure here that captures the way this works. And I'm using an SDK called the Photon Fusion 2 SDK. Maybe some of you have heard of it, maybe not. All of this work is developed in the Unity 3D environment. And I can really recommend the technical development team at Photon Fusion 2, I guess, because I was finding lots of unique little challenges along the way, and they were really responsive to what I was doing and really helpful. So I would be emailing the chaps in Switzerland, and they would be excited about what I was trying to do and giving me solutions. So it was great. So this is basically the performance model of the piece that I've been working towards. I have a performer that sees a VR score, which is being manipulated by people all around the world. And they are hearing the manipulations as objects might collide. And the performer is able to respond to that and actually interpret the score as well. So that's the basic model. There's a little bit of stuff about latency in the paper. The Photon Fusion toolkit has some nice metrics for measuring latency. So obviously, depending on the number of clients that you've got connected to the application, which in my case was hosted in Singapore, the faster or slower the network traffic might be, and the less latency you'll experience. With works like this, of course, timing is not really critical. These graphic scores don't really require performers to synchronize events. So latency musically is not really a real constraining factor that I would have had to deal with ordinarily. So this is all the work on December 1952 that's led up to the work in the paper. And that's where I talk about the adaptations that are in development, such as 4 Systems, which is very similar graphically to the December 1952 piece. This piece is for 4 pianos. You can see graphically it looks almost the same in some respects. The symbols that are used, obviously there's 4 systems instead of one large open form page. So it's a little bit different in that respect. What makes this a little bit different is that I can use a an Oculus Quest 3 headset as if it's an augmented reality device. So this was quite a new affordance, which was made possible late last year. So instead of being immersed in a little world, you can use the front-facing cameras on it to remain in touch with the world. So the pianist can have a headset on, see their instrument in color, and that might sound like a little trivial observation, but a year ago, all that you had was grayscale imagery coming through, so it was next to useless as an AR device. But nevertheless, the Quest 3 lets you get color imagery from outside the world and to see virtually created objects projected onto that. So this is the score for 4 Systems projected onto the surface of the piano. And this score moves around as people in Europe or the States or wherever happen to transform it. So that's the idea for that piece. There's more information in the paper. The piece after that I've been looking at is something called Jasper by Christian Wolff. This is quite a late work, 1991. And this is a piece for double bass and viola. So it's a bit of an unusual instrumentation. And this is the 3rd movement. The first 2 movements and the final movement use common practice notation. So there's nothing really unusual there. But this movement has this graphic element to it, which is really quite distinctive. And so I was thinking, how can I adapt that to VR? What might be a way to do that? And VR, one of the key things, obviously, is that you're immersed in the world. So instead of looking at a flat surface, how about we wrap this around the instrumentalist so that when they move around like this, they can see the score all around them. So that was the thought behind this. So the distribution of objects on this grid is exactly the same as it is in Jasper, except that it's wrapped around a circle. So the idea is that the string player would stand in the middle of the score and walk around. But conceptually, it's the same kind of idea that I can have networked clients jump into this room where the score is and move it around, and the performers can respond to that. And not only do they move around these little nodes, but they can play the score as if it's an instrument as well. And the way that's done is like this. There is actually audio here, I just realized. Can you kind of hear that? It's just coming from my laptop. So they can move these around the circles, and they can pluck the strings as well. The plucking at the strings, the pitch that you hear is dependent on the length of the string. So the longer that string or arc between two notes is, the lower the pitch will be. The shorter it is, the higher the pitch will be. So you can pluck this like this strange harp. So as I'm playing this, I can just move around and pluck it and move it like this. I've only got a few minutes left, but I do really want to switch into Unity quickly to show you how this looks in Unity. But before I do that, I'll just quickly just throw up that slide, which is this piece from 1962 by Takemitsu, which is one of the current pieces in development. So I'm working on this. There's more information on that in the paper. I've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm just going to show you this quickly because it might be of interest. I don't have a network connection, but this is Jasper. All of this work is done in Unity. This is the scene for Jasper, so just to give you an idea. Okay, so you're hearing a lot of strings, and the reason you're hearing strings is because things are colliding. And so the strings are actually being plucked by other objects. If I go into the scene view and we look in, there it is there. Okay. And there's a little panel here that we can use to choose which system we have. On the original score, there are 3 systems, so these can be chosen here. That's the score itself. If you were quick, you might have seen this. Let me stop and start again quickly. This is all the network metrics, but my computer is not connected to the network at the moment, so there's no metrics to show you. So this is really helpful, though, when I've got clients connected to the score and I can see what the network traffic's like. So that's helpful, but there's nothing there to see. So that's the score itself. There's a lot more information in the paper if you're interested. I've just burnt through a whole lot of information and I want to leave some time for questions. So I'm going to stop it right there and take a couple if you have any. Oh, that was timely.
David, do I have any questions? Oh, yeah.
Thanks for the fascinating talk and beautiful sounds. I'm not familiar with the earlier John Cage scores and so forth, but a musical score has a representation of time. What's your default representation of time in the sorts of scores that you and your other collaborators are writing?
Yeah, so I mean, the scores that I've shown you have a very unique perspective on time. They're not linear necessarily, and these are the ones that I'm particularly attracted to. There's no clear starting point. There's no clear ending point. Often there's no clear indication of how long things take. So this is something that I'm really interested in, but it has unique challenges as well. You don't know when things start. You don't know how you might synchronize events. So yeah, it's a question that I can't address in a 30-word answer. So I'm aware of it, and it's just one of the attractive things of this work that I'm enjoying working with.
I've seen some of these in concert, right? You have the technician is on their screen, you have the people in VR performing, and then the people in the audience are watching the screen. Is it your ideal situation?
No.
Or would it be that everyone is in goggles on AR?
You know, the first piece that I worked on in mixed reality was the one that I showed you with the people walking around the performance space. And believe it or not, I mean, this question has come up quite a lot. And it's something I never even thought about. You know, what's the audience experience of that like? And a lot of the audience members were a little bit disconcerted because they had no idea what the performers were doing. And part of me was thinking, well, if you go to a classical music classical music concert, and performers are reading from music on stage, you don't really know what they're doing in that respect either. Nevertheless, it's kind of a flippant response in some ways because it's almost incumbent these days for composers to give some guidance to the audience. So yeah, I don't know what the solution is. It was suggested that maybe I could have displays in the space so that the audience can see what's going on. But then suddenly my three-dimensional score becomes flattened on a two-dimensional surface. So it's not what I want. Funnily enough, that earlier graphic score I showed you, Point Studies 2, that appeared on the cover of Computer Music Journal years ago, but it was black and white and it was flat. And I thought, oh, this is not really the way I'd like this to be portrayed. So it's a real problem when you're presenting depth to an audience. So I think the VR stuff is kind of starting to address that. If you happen to have a VR headset, you can pop into the room where the score is and get a sense of what's going on. But yeah, again, there's no easy solution to this. It's just one of the joys of working with VR, and isn't it?
We're going to take one more small question and maybe.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I love how you've situated the scores in 3 dimensions. And I wonder if the user is also able to be in 3 dimensions, floating up and down rather than being grounded on the floor.
Yeah, so that's something that you can do. You can walk within the scores, but one of the things I'm working on now is giving each user an avatar so that you can see everyone else in the space, and the avatars are correlated to where your hands happen to be. So if you're moving the score, you can actually see the hands of people. You can see which way they're situated. So it gives people a little bit of a better sense of who's in the space, what they're actually doing. Rather than seeing these disembodied objects floating around mysteriously, they can see who's actually doing that. And you can correlate certain aspects of that avatar to where that person might happen to be physically. So I've got someone working on the score in Marseille. I can give them a red, white, and blue coloring. Perhaps that would be problematic if they're from the States, I guess, but we can figure it out. But yeah, there's ways of making people more aware of who's in the space and what they're doing. So looking at that, yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. Thanks all. I need your
I think personally, it's also my PhD's.
Wow.
Dealing with this
The demo
technological mixed reality stuff and designing musical instruments. And
You have the USB-C.
just looking at like watching David's presentation, I think it's really refreshing to see there's also musical perspective, right?
HDMI to USB-C.
Yeah, put another one outside.
Thank you.
Do I have any more NIME joke?
It's muted.
No.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Oh,
Cool.
okay, very good.
Yeah. The next presenter, Kunwoo, and his presentation, SVOrk, Stanford Virtual Reality Orchestra.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Today I would like to chronicle the design of Stanford Virtual Reality Orchestra called SVOrk. It's conceived at CARMA, Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics at Stanford University. And my name is Kunwoo Kim, and today I'm here with my collaborator, Zhou Eito. So SVOrk is a VR computer music ensemble where both performers and audience engage in a shared, fully immersive VR concert experience. Also, SVOrk is a concert-going experience, designing the context around the performances, ranging from ushering the audience, instructing the controls, creating virtual lobbies, audience interactions, networking, avatars, and more. And when one hears about VR orchestra, they might imagine violins, cellos, or trumpets played on a virtual stage. However, we thought mimicking an orchestra in physical reality does not do full justice to using VR. We believe that physical concerts are best experienced in physical reality. So we went for the fantastical, where a flying whale, dandelion, a giant face, cowboys in a brain, inner spaces, and cityscapes can be used as live musical instruments, a concert that you can only experience in VR. And SVOrk rather began with a personal motivation rather than a grand aspiration. I personally love turning my imaginations into VR experiences and sharing the expressions with others. In the past, however, when I used to perform or demonstrate my designs, I was in VR inside a headset while the audience was in physical reality looking at a 2D screen of my VR experience. But an experience projected on a 2D screen is quite different from what you would experience in the headset. So I wanted all the audience members to wear the headsets with me and have an experience in the same medium. And this became the seed idea for SVOrk. And I began the design of SVOrk not by listing technical requirements or flowcharts, but actually writing a future fictional diary of the day of the concert. And I imagined and wrote about the experience from like co-presence, safety precautions, ushering, instructions, and avatar creation to virtual lobbies and more. And I tried to imagine what the audience members and performers would be feeling, experiencing the concert. And taking a value-based design approach, I thought it was only right to have the end experience guide the overall design. So the end experience of SVOrk has three defining characteristics. So first, SVOrk uses computer-mediated music that is synthesized and generated in real time. And SVOrk provides a shared VR environment for both performers and the audience. And third, SVOrk concerts occur in a physical venue. And to elaborate on the last point, while it may seem more advantageous to leverage VR's affordances for remote access and large-scale participation, we decided to preserve the humanistic context of a concert-going experience, like dressing up for the occasion, socializing in lobbies, being ushered to seats, and engaging with in-person discussions, etc. And even though the experience may be in VR, there's still a sense of sharedness by being biologically together in a shared space. Also, we wanted to ensure accessibility to necessary equipment for everybody and prepare structured responses to technical difficulties. Therefore, we prioritize physical co-presence over remote participation. So a team of 7 in the Karma VR Design Lab embarked on the journey. And this picture was taken the day of the kickoff. And we look so happy in the picture, unaware of the blood, sweat, and tears that will be spilled in the next 6 months. We divided into 3 teams: avatar, networking, and audience interactions. And the avatar team was in charge of giving a body to the people in SVOrk. And avatars play an important role in VR, particularly in shared spaces. They allow participants to personalize their digital presence, enhance self-expression, and promote empathy. And for our current iteration,
you can now create your avatar.
Oh, sorry, I will switch. We chose to go with this neutral humanoid form with some customizable options for 2 reasons. One, we wanted to mitigate any potential socio-cultural biases that could result from the form of the avatar. And 2, we wanted to allow the avatar to blend with various fantastical contexts during the concert. And we also developed kinematics related to hand and head tracking and the locomotion, like moving and turning within the VR space. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Oh. Great. Okay, I think I hear it in the speakers.
You can now create your
Perfect.
avatar.
So next, SVOrk required a method to synchronize graphics, audio, and concert stage across all devices through networking. And using Tunity, Chuck music programming language in the Unity game engine, we developed SVOrk Netcode, a custom networking solution tailored to the design requirements of the VR orchestra, focusing on specificity more than abstraction. And all network messages are relayed by the server using OSC messages, and no raw audio are transmitted. Instead, because audio is being synthesized on each machine in real time, we network only the high-level synthesis parameters and timing events. And lastly, we crafted VR audience interactions and the context around them. And the context revolves around the following concert flow. So first, the audience enters the venue, the physical venue, and takes time to adjust the headset and orientation. And after a brief welcoming remark and safety precautions, we ask everyone to wear their headset and enter a tutorial space called the private waiting room. And then followed by a virtual lobby called the public waiting room, and experience our musical works. Then the audience exits VR, followed by a 10-minute Q&A discussion. And we also requested an optional anonymous survey of the concert. So based on this concert flow, the audience needs 1, methods to react to performances, 2, instructions on how to navigate through controls, and 3, social context for interactions. And in VR, clapping after a performance does not easily translate, as the participants are holding their controllers, while visually and sonically isolated by their HMD and headphones. Therefore, we provided a new form of an applause, like conjuring petals around their bodies or shooting stars at the performers, and we hope this enhances audience engagement and participation. Next, we made a set of user interfaces designed to accommodate people with no prior experience in VR. And to provide a series of instructions on the controls, we created a virtual tutorial space called the private waiting room.
Welcome to the Stanford VR Orchestra.
And through verbal narrations, text directions, and
Once
graphical
you're happy with
animations,
how you look, press confirm using the trigger button.
the audience learns how to customize their own avatar,
using your left joystick, and snap turn using your right joystick.
How to move around the space, and how to adjust system settings such as volume, move speed, and turn angles. After the private waiting room, the audience gathers in a space called the public waiting room. And here the audience can see, oh, it's another crash. But in the, okay, Andrew, could you help me? Yeah, but sorry. The technical difficulties are kind of my trauma from SVOrk experiences, but I got rather more reserved about it. So please bear with me. But the public waiting room is a virtual lobby where the audience meets after finishing their tutorials in the private waiting room. And the space is 3D modeled after the physical venue. And so it acts as a transitional space between physical and virtual reality. So, and thank you, Andrew. Okay, let's continue. Sorry about that. Okay, oops. Okay. Give it a second. Yeah. Okay, so this is what the public waiting room looks like. And these are all individual people in their avatar forms. Okay, so with the development of avatar, networking, and audience interactions, we designed a functional infrastructure for the concert. And with this, each of the team member created a musical experience on a topic they wanted to personally express and perform. On June 1st and 2nd, 2024, we delivered 5 series of concerts to about 60 audience members. And here are the snippets of the pieces performed in the concert. Karma Dreams by Wang. If Karma, our research center, were to dream, what would it dream of? Was Go's inspirational question. It would dream of its people, was his answer. And Dandelion by me. I wanted to express the beauty of ephemerality of human beings, represented by the life cycle of a dandelion within this giant sphere of machinery. It's a little dark. Okay, next, Fragment Itself by Yikai. This piece expresses how modern people are inundated with information and how this influx shapes our emotions. Remember Wrench by Max Jardetzky expresses the fragility and fallibility of memory. And here, the performers are these cowboys wrangling the memory pieces inside the brain. Next, assertion by Marise provides a room to reflect about mental health, wellness, and medication, moments that are typically hidden from others. And here, the performers are not the humanoid avatar form, but these dark clouds that surround the audience. And lastly, Prisoner of the Mind by Eito Murakami expresses the discord and isolation of being immersed in the world of digital technology. I'm so glad that I could be able to show you the whole concert process. But yes, I think it's my fault. I put the large data video.
It's definitely PowerPoint's fault.
No, it's okay. Okay, so hopefully there are no more videos, so hopefully it will persist. Thank you for bearing with me. One of the audience responded, "This was genuinely one of the most inspiring, beautiful, and terrifying experiences I've had recently. It honestly gave me hope of how humans will use technology to teach one another empathy and express the most human notions about us." And another responded, "There's just something so special about being immersed in the same virtual environment with others. It felt like I was peeking into every SVOrk member's inner imagination, something that I wouldn't be able to express otherwise." Very generous reviews on the fantastical nature and social engagement of the concert. And here's an example of how an ensemble performance is organized. The music that you're hearing right now is from my piece called The Dandelion. And all of the sounds are created in real time through Chuck, and they are all individually spatialized in the VR scene. And performer number 1 interacts with the virtual wheel in front of them to control the tempo and volume of these 20 polyrhythmic gear sounds. And whenever a gear sound is played, the corresponding gear in the scene will rotate. And performer number 2 similarly controls the onset and amount of desynchronization of the gear sounds by playing with the wheel in front of them. And performer number 3 pulls on a rope to trigger this giant bell in the ceiling while rotating the right hand to control vibrato and reverberation of the sound propagation. And performer number 4 rotates their right hand to conjure these falling streams of sand and water from the sky, and the velocity of the hand is mapped to the overall volume as well as the width of the streams. And the streams each represent a voice in a polyphonic chorus made by granular synthesis. Lastly, performer number 5 uses arm gestures to grow the dandelion from the ground, and it corresponds to the pseudo-randomized piano and modal bar sounds that you're hearing right now. Okay, and as an ensemble, we held rehearsals using scores like this. And some attendees found the audience first approach to be compelling, while a few commented on how the virtual acoustics could be improved further. And we managed to document the concert in VR by developing a system to record and replay the group performance in VR. So you can wear a headset and experience the whole performance again while retaining the audience agency. We thought this was a more fitting documentation method for VR. And lastly, SVOrk Toolkit is to be released as an open source software in the Unity Asset Store, providing a plug-and-play framework that integrates SVOrk's avatar, networking, and programmable music capabilities. And we hope this serves as an accessible, humanistic tool that other people can use to host many different kinds of imaginations and social contexts in VR. And as a conclusion, we hope to put forth a new paradigm for group-based computer music composition, instrument design, and live performances. And in evolving SVOrk, we hope to further explore the creative and expressive potential of the VR technology. And I would like to thank Stanford Accelerator for Learning for making this project possible. And thank you everyone for listening.
Talk on
Thanks.
your resilience. Do I have any questions? Yeah, one.
microphones closer. It's a bit of a naive question perhaps, but what are the possibilities of like, let's say, there's like VR chat, right? Which is made in Unity. What would be the possibility to like, port this kind of experience within that, and have the avatar stuff handled by VR chat?
Yeah, I don't know how to do that, but I think it will be interesting. So there are concerts in the VR chat, but most of the performances are done in physical reality, and the audio is relayed to virtual. But in here, we try to use like computer coded programmable audio to be driving the graphics and interactions. So we really hope that this kind of computer mediated music aspect can be ported into a platform with a larger audience like VR chat, so many more people can experience computer music.
Thank you. Thanks, Kunwoo, for that one. Hello.
Oh,
sorry, I'm using this one. Just two quick questions. The first one, I'm just wondering whether you were using hand tracking more or intend to consider the use of hand tracking so that you can get more data and a more natural kind of interaction rather than the use of controllers. Second question is why you felt it necessary to develop your own avatar creation library when there are quite a lot of existing libraries already out there.
Oh, I see. So first, we use controller tracking because it hand tracking, we tested it out, but it was a little bit unreliable when we were testing it out. And we needed to have the audience members who have no prior knowledge in VR to kind of interact. And if hand tracking were like pinching and it were more kind of understandable easily, then we would have used hand tracking. But we just used controllers because we intentionally made the interaction to be just one button on each end, so it would be more simpler for them to access the interactions. And secondly, the avatars, we had numerous ideas of what to do with the form of the avatar. We thought of like animals or different people, or even representing the facials and body shape of their own. But we just decided to we read papers that form can introduce virtual bias to others. So we definitely toned it down to a neutral humanoid form. And we use the libraries that allow us to move and do head tracking and stuff. Yeah. So thank you.
One more small question.
Were there any interaction between users within virtual and physical? Sorry, one more time. Were there any interaction that across the virtual and physical space? Which space? Within users, within performers, are there any interactions between the audience and performers? There. In the concert, we did a test concert. I'll make this short as possible, but we did a test concert where the audience could react to the performers, to the performance with like the shooting stars and stuff. But then we noticed that they were overusing their reaction kits. So they were spraying stars on my dandelion throughout the piece, and the audience members thought that was distracting. So we kind of separated the performer and audience interactions within the same space, unfortunately. But that's our biggest future direction that we are looking for, the audience participation in the performance. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the presentations online.
Yeah, okay.
Hello. Hello. Oh, I think I'm kind of mute in a way. Um,
Oh, Hyunkyung, if you want to start, you can start right away. Please welcome Hyunkyung in
okay.
AR Matchmaking, the compatibility of musical instruments with an AR interface.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, and hopefully the audio is okay. Yeah, so I'm Hyunkyung Shin, and my advisor is Dr. Von Kohler, and today I'll be presenting the AR matchmaking study, which explored the compatibility of an AR interface with 12 different instruments. And why AR? So, as both a performer and a researcher, I was particularly curious about AR because of its potential to integrate digital and physical realities. And to explore this, I focused on hybrid interaction, which offers new opportunities to enhance the creativity and musical expression of physical instruments. So I first developed AR Cube, an AR interface for hybrid interaction. The cube represents space and provides an easy to manipulate environment, allowing users to control spatialization and sound effects through gestures using four virtual objects. So as you can see in the video, users can easily manipulate the cube and object with grab and pinch gestures. So from there were three different projects, and these are kind of like a background of this study. So there was first a usability experiment and an AR performance for creative exploration, and this AR matchmaking study. So these were related to AR interfaces and were also my master's projects. Yeah, so I will now briefly show a video of two cubes on AR performance that explores the creative potential of AR interface, which is called like AR Cube. So in this video, you can hear a contrabass player, actually it's me, uses the like blue objects to create sound layers. Yeah, and this two cubes performance was the first step in this creative exploration. Instead of just one performer, two cubes brought together two different instruments like double bass and modular synthesizer. And the interaction turned out to be really unique, shaped by the characteristics of each instrument, like timbre and also the like instruments techniques. So after that, a question naturally came up. So how could other instruments use this air cube, and how can we share these opportunities with others? So to answer that, we selected 12 different instruments based on the Hornbosel-Sachs classification. To include the voice as an instrument, I proposed an extended version of the system, and it helped demonstrate more diversity among the participants. And all 12 participants used 60OF AR interface that allowed them to freely send location and rotation data from each of the four objects, red, green, blue, and yellow. And this was the same interface used in the previous two cubes performance, which was built with a SVOrk collider-based AR performance system. So the total of 36 real-time parameters measured from the air cube were sent via OSC to Super Collider, where they were used for sound processing and higher order ambisonics encoding. And encoded signals could then be sent to one external decoder with the ability to route the output to any desired number of loudspeakers. So we can use the multi-channel speaker system with different venues. And for the experiment, MetaQuest 3 was used to allow participants to interact with the air interface through the HMD. And additionally, for the spatial rendering part, a custom feature called the spatial splitter was implemented, and this function divided the azimuths into 4 sections to enable more natural sound during gesture-based object movements. And then Jack and IEM plugins were also integrated to support this setup. So within this sound system, the spatial feedback delay effect was chosen for all objects to account for the characteristics of acoustic instruments which produce sounds on their own. And each object processes the sound using 3 parameters. First is delay time, second is feedback gain, and then pitch shift. And the instrument sound is captured via line input or microphone, and the audio signal forms a closed loop that starts at the red objects and cycles through green, blue, yellow, and back to red. To control sound parameters, object movements was mapped, as you can see in diagrams, on vertical and y-axis movement controlled gain, and distance from the center adjusted delay time, and an attached indicator and arrow on each object were used to control feedback and pitch. And this is the overview of the study. Thank you for Jeremy. And the procedure was divided into 2 phases, structured tasks and creative tasks, including free exploration, which allowed us to observe participants' creative interactions. So participants began with a background survey, and after each phase, they completed a survey and participated in an interview. And here is a short demo of the study. So that was the experiment, and the results of the experiment were categorized into 5 themes, ranging from cue placement to sound effects. And the first theme is cube placement and usability. So while usability issues such as cube stability and hand tracking inaccuracies were still reported, but the study revealed clear placement preferences depending on the instrument and playing posture. So this table shows how playing posture influences cue placement. So first is like a fixed hand position, including piano and marimba. and they were like preferred near playing area to place the cube. And if the performer needs more spaces with large arm movements, they put the cube slightly to the side. And the last, like a wind instrument players, kept the cube within sight, but out of the way of embouchure control to prioritize visual accessibility over physical reach. And for the interaction challenges, 6 out of 12 participants reported conflicts between traditional techniques and hand-based interaction, since most instruments require both hands to manipulate the cube during performance was often disruptive. And some participants adapted by using alternative techniques. For example, marimba player held shoe malice in one hand and violin player used left hand pizzicato. And also alternative input method was suggested, such as head tracking or gestural for using the instrument itself. Additionally, 8 out of 12 participants used the cube as a tool for creative expression to explore new ways of generating and interacting with sound. And this included changing the role of melodic instruments by using delay effects to create rhythmic layers, to expand melodic lines into harmonic texture through layering, and developing new gesture-based techniques driven by movement. And next is performance structuring and sound manipulation part. And participants perceive the cube's object-based sound effects as individual expressive tools to allow them to structure their performances accordingly. And they were also able to identify effective sound transformations at specific positions or gestures while manipulating the objects. And some participants developed ways to memorize or record these interactions. And actually, we get the like papers during their creative performance, and then they kind of blend with this like notation. And this is kind of like one of the examples of the participants, and they can use the cube as their grid, and then they place this kind of like object inside to remember their sound, and they were kind of like connect that place with the object colors. And finally, the audio and spatial effects enable the development of new expressive techniques through the use of AirCube. So participants were able to intuitively understand and actively engage with the 3D space, particularly by responding to gesture, movement, and speed. And here are the 6 main usability challenges shared across instruments related to hand usage, gesture misreading, movement limitations, hearing clarity, cube stability, and lack of feedback. Also, from the study, we identified key challenges, suggestions, and air interaction patterns specific to each of the 12 instruments. And these details are present in the tables in the paper, so they can be helpful if you're looking for results on specific instruments. And it was also meaningful to see how differences in timbre and physical constraints across instruments became unique features when making music through the air interface. And that's it. So there are several aspects that this paper couldn't fully cover or that were explored but not included in detail, such as the participants' approaches to notation or the potential for broader use in improvisational context. So I think my AirCube is still a prototype, but I believe it can serve as a starting point for future research and experimentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hyunkyung. Is there any question from the audience? I can ask a question to you first. In your observation, how much agency is extended by the cube system? So, in other words, how much of the performance, like the characteristics and behaviors, are driven by the cube system versus driven by the performer themselves?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a good question. So it was really interesting to see like how the performers can use this air cube, and so for me it was really impressive. The virtuosity is like kind of the really key aspect when they experience a cube and like extend its possibilities. Um, so it can be either way. So if the performer is really like virtuosic and they really know how it is and like they are really familiar with experimental music, there's more possibility definitely. But at the same time, even they are not like lack of experiences or like less experience like with the experimental things. Um, they considered cube as a, like another instrument and another possibility, and they can plan from there. So I think cube can be also a new like suggestion for the like new expression of sound, including the like spatialization inside of the cube. And then also like it can be the tool to like enhance the like virtuosity for the experimental performer.
Cool, thank you. Is there any other questions from the audience? Okay, if not, thank you very much, Hyunkyung. Maybe one more round of applause. And next presenter is, yep. We have Fumihira and Andrew Johnston on physical music albums in the digital era, exploring experiential value through the integration of AR. Okay, please welcome Anna.
Hello, I'm Anna Fumihira from the University of Technology, Sydney. It's a great honor to be here to present my graduation research project. I would like to acknowledge the guardian of people in the Arula Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today. I pay my respect to their elders past and present and extend the respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples. Before I begin, I would like to briefly share my background. 2 years ago, I came to Sydney from Japan to study a Master of Interaction Design. My undergraduate degree was in Cultural Studies, so this project combines cultural insights with the design I gained through my master's. This interdisciplinary approach allowed me to explore music experiences from a unique perspective. Today, I examine the continued relevancy of physical music albums in the digital age and explore how AR can enhance their experimental value by blending tactile engagement with digital immersion. This presentation draws on perspectives from fandom, user experience, and media theory. Let me begin with some background. As Walter Benjamin observed, technological reproductions lessen the aura of artist uniqueness in time and space. In music, this is reflected in the dominance of digital streaming, now over 67% of global consumption. Yet physical albums still hold value, especially among fan communities. In 2023, 19 of the top 20 best-selling physical albums were by K-pop artists, with Taylor Swift as the only exception, showing that fandom can sustain physical formats. This isn't unique to K-pop. The vinyl revival also signals a desire for tangible, ritual-based experiences. Actions like unboxing or browsing the lyrics browsing lyrics cast, which are often referred to as supplemental materials, foster deeper engagement and lasting memories. In contrast, digital formats often lack these sensory depths, what Benjamin described as the loss of aura. Meanwhile, AR is increasing use in music, including the physical albums, but many current uses are promotional with little focus on the user experience. While AR at NIME is often used in performance or compositions, this study focuses on the listener and how AR can deepen user engagement through the media of physical albums. Given this context, two key questions guided this study. What causes the experimental gap between physical and digital albums, especially in emotional engagement and memory? And can AR integration enhance physical albums by ritualistic experience to promote revisitation? To answer these questions, I used two methods. First, an online survey with 31 participants aged from their teens to 60s, exploring how often they use digital and physical formats and what memories they have with each. Second, I developed a physical album prototype incorporating AR elements themed around the K-pop group NCT Dream. Due to time constraints, I selected participants who were familiar with physical albums, especially K-pop fans, based on research sales data, in order to quickly gather relevant user feedback. They participated in a user test comparing this prototype with the Savage existing AR integrated album by a spot that received an IF Design Award for its UX design. The online survey revealed several key findings. As expected, over 80% of participants used the digital music daily, while physical albums were used for less often to listen music. Interestingly, physical albums had a higher revisitation rate even among those who hadn't bought one recently. Many still return to them to engage with physical album materials like booklets or cover art. Memorable experiences fell into two categories. Physical albums prompted action-based memories like unboxing with a friend, while digital albums were mostly associated with convenience or recommendations. Notably, 8 participants had no memorable digital experiences, and one even mentioned a negative one. Next, I'd like to introduce the prototype and summarize the user testing results. The prototype album titled Chapter 7 replaced the traditional CD with the NFC-enabled key. This symbolic key represents how music unlocks shared memories between fans and artists. It was packaged in a treasure box-style case, reinforcing the narrative and emotional experience of discovery. To complement the physical component, I developed an AR app called the Dream Connect, which acted as a bridge between the physical and digital. The app features a paper-textured interface and icons based on real objects to maintain material familiarity. Due to time constraint, we used the marker-based versions of the treasure box for testing, and mock-ups were used to simulate lyric cards and photo cards. The prototype offered 3 main AR features. First, users could scan the inside of the album box to trigger floating animations and music videos linked to the selected song. Second, the AR Live features allow users to scan a ticket card to watch a virtual concert. In multiplayer mode, fans could enjoy the concert simultaneously from different locations, enhancing a shared sense of presence. Lastly, an AR photo features let users to take pictures with virtual figures of the artist, with or without a marker, tapping into fan culture around collection and interaction. These features were designed to enhance immersion, emotional connections, and a desire to share the experiences. In post-test interviews, participants responded positively to both the prototype and the existing AR album. However, the prototype was rated higher in several areas. All participants appreciated the seamless integration of visual and audio. 3 participants highlighted the multiplayer concert experience especially as a reason they would want to revisit the AR. The app interface was also praised for being simple and intuitive. Several users said they could navigate it confidently without help. The icon-only home screen was noted for its clean, accessible feel. Sharing was another key point. Many participants said they found the experience more meaningful because it could be shared with others. We made several improvements based on our user feedback. While everyone completed tasks, 2 users were unsure at first, So we added step-by-step prompts to guide interactions. Another suggestion was to make the album more portable. In response, we redesigned the treasure box as a miniature key case to carry alongside the NFC key. Finally, we changed the AR animation behavior. Originally, animation appeared while the device remained still, but in the updated versions, they move off screen and require users to move their phones around the object. This increased the sense of immersion and presence, and it kept users more focused on the AR content. This study revealed that the experiential differences between physical and digital albums are strongly influenced by supplementary materials and ritualistic behaviors, which play a significant role in memory formations and emotional attachment. In particular, sensory engagement and the perceived inconvenience of physical music album interactions may contribute to preserving the what Walter Benjamin described as aura. While this study focused on physical albums, it is worth noting that, unlike physical formats, that inconvenience of digital formats is unlikely to enhance experiential value. This suggests that digital music platforms must prioritize comfort and seamless user experience to remain engaging. Findings from the AR prototype test suggest that when AR aligns with the fan culture, it has the potential to promote revisitation. Like traditional supplemental materials such as photocards or booklets, AR can reinforce an album's narrative and deliver immersive experiences. However, its effectiveness is highly context-dependent and may not translate equally across all genres or fandoms. For AR to function effectively, it must also maintain the album's world building throughout the transition from physical to digital. Moreover, since AR requires user interactions, the design must minimize cognitive and operational burden to ensure a smooth and intuitive experience. In conclusion, AR holds the potential to complement the materials and ritual qualities of physical music albums, enhancing the user's experiential value significantly. However, broader application across diverse user groups and music genres is needed to fully establish and realize this effectiveness. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Is there any question from the audience? Yes. So if you're here, it would be transition.
Hi. Yeah, thanks so much for the presentation. Just a short question about what about the perceived value of like the AR extension to the music? Can you say something about that? Because for instance, when I have a small collection of vinyl records, and I think that each record has some value to it, right? Besides the free ones and like, well, also like the value of like finding it in a specific store, you know, to a specific day, having that emotional connection, and also the fact that this is unlimited, right? So it's like I just wanted to ask you to say something about the specific additional value of the AR experience in comparison to what you can make out of a physical experience. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your question. So let me double check your questions. So you wanna that your questions means like the how we can like the add the new values by the AR features, except the physical one.
It's like the perceived value of the user for that like AR extension that you have.
Oh, the value.
Right? What do you think about the perceived value?
The values for the users by AR.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we were thinking about that as well, and then so this time I used the AR for the like supplemental materials like the booklets or lyric cards to help convey the album's word or concept from the artist. So I would say like the for the users, they could feel like the more immersions by the air, not only the physical things. But we not sure like how the users feel if they use only the AR contents without the physical things, because physical albums are pretty key points to the the target audience this time, I used the K-pop fandoms, and then we really needed to think about the transition from the physical to digital, and then also try to like consistency between these two words. So I would say like we could give them the new values about like the understanding their favorite artist word more compared to just using the physical albums. But we still need to like do further research and investigations about this field. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what about the multimodal aspect of it?
Sorry, what was?
What about the multimodal aspect of it? Right? Because I can read it on a screen, for instance, like the lyrics, right? And the same way I can like perceive it on AR, I can read it on the screen. So what about the multimodal part of like mind record, that you touch it, that you smell it, that it makes noise when you move it. So there's also that aspect to think about. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Anna. And our final presenter is Zhou and Charles Marty, exploring the impact of spatial awareness on large-scale AR DMIs.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Qiance Zhou from the Australia National University. Today, I'm really excited to share our work on designing large-scale augmented reality digital musical instruments, or AR DMIs for short. And I will talk about how spatial awareness plays an important role in shaping both performance and user experience. So before we dive into the details of our AR DMI system, I would like to share the motivation behind it. A journey that began as a practical design task, but following the approach of autobiographical design, graduated evolved into something much more personal. So at first, our research group aimed to reconstruct an existing large-scale digital musical instrument in AR environment. These instruments are known for their expressive and immersive qualities. While there are many AR DMIs today, very few explore truly large-scale designs. AR, however, offers something that physical space simply can't: the spatial flexibility, the freedom to design instruments that aren't limited by gravity, material, or fixed dimensions. So we wanted to explore how spatial awareness might influence the musical performance, and at the same time address a major challenge in large-scale DMIs, the physical barriers, especially the difficulty performers face when trying to reach distant components during play. Then one night, just around midnight, I went to the lab alone to work on my prototype. So there was no one around. The campus felt totally empty. And as I approached the HANA building, which is my lab, everything was dark and silent. And when I stepped inside, my footsteps echoed through the empty hallway, and the sound-active lights turned on one after another, as if the space was responding to me. So in that quiet, chilly moment, I didn't feel alone anymore. The building reacted to my presence, and it felt warm, almost like a silent companion. And that made me wonder, could a musical instrument respond like light? Not just be played, but react, form a kind of emotional dialogue with the performer. I remember reading about gaze control and object following features in the HoloLens documentation, and a new idea took shape. So instead of forcing the AR interface to mimic traditional layouts, what if we flip the paradigm? What if we, instead of fitting AR into the logic of physical instrument, we let the instrument layout adapt to the unique affordance of AR space? That was a turning point, the idea that led to the large-scale AR DMI we are presenting today. A system not designed to replicate, but to reimagine musical interaction in virtual space. So building on this idea, the AR DMA we design moves beyond traditional touch-based interaction. Of course, you can still touch to trigger sound, but in AR, what you are touching is virtual. So in our system, we call these sound components. When perform active one, it produces sound. And now you may be wondering, what about large scale? Well, this is where things get interesting. This instrument has no fixed layout. So when you launch this DMI, all you see is a menu. So no body, no keyboard, no grid, just a simply spot starting point. So why we remove the layout? Because when designing for AR, we ask ourselves, if this space is virtual, why constrain it? Why not let the entire performance space become part of the instrument? So we give performance full control. They can create and place sound components however they want. We call this the setup stage, a bit like a hunter laying traps. But this time, the one being drawn in is the hunter themselves. As they lay out the instrument, they are also shaping the space they will capture them, guiding their body, their gesture, and their musical flow. And this leads to the interaction strategies. If a sound matters small, they can scale it up, move it closer. If something is not needed very often, they can place it far away and trigger it with gaze. For components that are used frequently, or if the performer enjoys moving around during the performance, they can use follow mode, which keeps those sound components always within view, no matter where they go. That's why we say it is large scale, but with a twist. The DMI can fill a room or just orbit around the performer. So it's not just large, it's scale adaptive. This approach solves the accessibility issue in physical large-scale DMIs while keeping that immersive feel. And more importantly, it empowers each performance to design the instrument in a way that fits their body, their gesture, and their music. After iterating on our AR DMS through autographical design, we conducted a small-scale user evaluation to collect both qualitative and quantitative feedback. The experiment includes 8 participants with backgrounds or interests in AR or digital music. Each used the HoloLens 2 headset to interact with the system. The process was very simple. They first used the setup menu to place sound components, and then explore the system in performance mode, using touch, gaze, or follow interaction. So afterwards, we conducted semi-structured interview to understanding the user impressions and collect SAS score to measure usability. This mixed method approach allows us to assess not only how useful the system was, but also how it supports creative and well pinpoint, give us deep insight into performance experience. After user study, we perform a bottom-up semantic analysis on the interview transcript. We also draw on patterns from the SAS response to inform and refine our findings. Through this combined approach, we identified 4 final themes that reflect how performers experience the AR DMI. First, many participants describe a strong sense of spatial immersion. The ability to move through their self-created layout made the experience feel physically embodied and engaging. And second, the ability to customize the interface gives the performer a clear sense of ownership and supported creative exploration, making the system feel like an instrument they had personally crafted. Third, interaction methods like gaze control and follow mode were more than functional. Users felt this mode enable a kind of emotional communication with the instrument. And finally, the overall experience was described as intuitive and enjoyable. Even for those who had never used AR before, reflecting the system's accessibility and learnability. Together, this themes suggest that our AR DMI not only work technically, but also create a meaningful and expressive connection with the performer. So while the result was encouraging, we found two key limitations. First, gaze mode sometimes cause unintended triggers when participation moves too fast. And second, setup phase, while flexible, feels time-consuming to some users. And both limitations highlight areas for future improvement. So what began as a personal realization soon became a shared experience. Several participants told us the layout felt like an extension of their bodies. That was when we realized this was no longer just my story. To conclude, this project demonstrates how AR enables us to reimagine large-scale DMS, rather than merely replicate them. By freeing instruments from fixed physical forms and making space itself interactive, we open up new creative possibilities, where layout adapts to the performer, not the other way around. More importantly, the unique affordance of AR introduced entirely new ways for humans to engage with musical instruments. In this space, the instrument does not just sit apart from the performer, it becomes an extension of the body. For example, gaze-based triggering can be seen as an extension of eye-hand coordination, a form of musical gesture that bypasses the hand altogether. This shift frees performers from the physical limitation of their bodies, allows the instrument to respond not only to touch, but to intention, motion, and presence. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any question? I know we are over time, so maybe one or two. I have a question. How I know this is an ongoing project right now. How do you envision, since it's a performance, how do you envision the audience to experience the AR performances?
So at this stage, indeed, there is like no audience, like just like self-performing. Yeah. So the key issue is and I need to balance the sensitivity of the gaze control or some like the AR unique control function and the balance between the fluidity of the performance. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
It just struck me that it's like a theatre, isn't it? So you could be performing in a theatre, an oddly shaped theatre. You can tag bits of the theatre that then come alive with music. I just wondered whether you thought about the parallels between what you're doing in theatre. It just seems to me that what you do is you can imagine a performer in an oddly shaped theatre, and then you tag parts of the theatre. So the theatre itself becomes a musical instrument. The audience can be sitting apart, and then you're moving through the theatre, touching bits and running a musical instrument. It could be quite entertaining for people watching without augmented reality. So I'm answering your question.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That will be the end of the session. Thank you for NIME organizers to organize the paper sessions all throughout. And have a great lunch.
Thanks. What a wonderful set of papers we've had. We're now concluded the paper program. It's our lunch break now. We have posters starting at 1:30, and then at 2:30 we have our second keynote from Peter Planey, which will be in the drama theatre. It's a performative keynote. So there'll be that session then, and then there'll be another coffee break, and then there'll be the final session, which is the town hall back in this, where we will hear all about NIME 2026 and many other things.